Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Citizens Bulletin, Know Your Role as an Informed Pennsylvania Citizen. I'm Susan Locke welcoming you today, and as usual, we have Ashley Klingensmith, who is the Pennsylvania State Director for Americans for Prosperity, bringing us a wonderful report. Good morning, Ashley.
Good morning, Susan, and good morning, listeners.
Well, we're so glad to have you with us today, and we look forward to what you have to share.
Absolutely. It is great to be here. I always like to start a little bit with just who we are and why we do what we do and what makes us, all of our work that is tearing up to our vision, successful. And so our vision at Americans for Prosperity Pennsylvania is for a Pennsylvania with robust free markets where a bias against erecting barriers to opportunity exists, and thriving communities where people succeed by helping one another are the norm rather than the exception. And so in our pursuit of realizing that vision, we arm and equip the grassroots advocates that exist across, frankly, all 67 counties in the Commonwealth to help us raise awareness around the issues we believe are critical to either defeat or advocate for in Harrisburg and in D.C. And then we also look for folks to partner with us to elevate the narrative and make sure that their members, whether that is their state representative, their state senator, their member of Congress, or either one of our U.S. senators, understand why an issue should be at the forefront of their consideration. And so in the pursuit of advancing and reaching our vision, we are unable to get even halfway there without listeners' partnership. And so what I want to do today is just share a little bit about some of the opportunities that are available in the listeners' region, not across the state, but in the listeners' region for folks to come out and meet our team and also just to get plugged in on some of the urgent legislative asks that we need to have some fortification on by way of your voice and your signing either a letter or petition. But before we get into those specifics, I just wanted to remind everyone that is tuning in today that the Pennsylvania Leadership Conference will be happening March 27th, that is a Friday, through the 28th, a Saturday, at the Radisson Penn Harris Convention Center in Camp Hill. And so as one of the main sponsors, we are excited to be there again this year. And we really want folks to be aware that PLC is the premier gathering of public policy conservatives that takes place on an annual basis in the Keystone State. And it really has become the largest, longest running of all the state-based conservative conferences that regularly attracts kind of those elected officials, scholars, journalists, and activists for 2 full days of speeches, panel presentations, workshops, and networking. And so I want folks to head to paleadershipconference.org and get registered there. One of the top drop-down menus is registration. It is very easy. And you can also check out the agenda there. And so the very first workshop that Friday, the 27th, it begins at 9 o'clock. We are hosting it. It is called Becoming a Watchdog. And our guest last week, Duane Lester from the Grassroots Leadership Academy, will be teaching that, instructing folks, and is just one of the premier citizen watchdog journalists, I believe, across the country. He really raised his profile unilaterally, and so we're so happy to have him on our team now and for him to be imparting some of those best practices to folks across the country. And then the Friday programming goes all the way through the 6 p.m. Liberty Dinner featuring Congressman Jason Chaffetz. And then on Saturday, the 28th, we'll begin with a breakfast featuring former Senator Rick Santorum, and we'll be ending by 3:30 that Saturday. So you'll be probably home in time for dinner, depending on where you come from. So we just want to encourage folks to sign up, get registered. There has been so much energy put into the speakers and panelists that are going to be present and programming in the breakout sessions and workshops. So we really want folks to take full advantage of that. So if there's any questions at all, as always, simply shoot our general inbox and email, info.pa@AFP, as in Americans for Prosperity, HQ, as in headquarters, .org. Shoot that email a note, and we'll get back to you and help you with any questions or troubleshooting with that registration. But it's pretty easy. I already know a slew of folks are registered and have their tickets and had no trouble at all. But I always want to give folks an opportunity to act and direct that action in the most easy, straightforward way as we can. And so I wanted to kind of jump back to a conversation we had at the very end of December or beginning of January. I can't remember when exactly it was, but when we kind of walked through our state policy priorities. And before we go to the state policy priorities, I want to ask folks to please sign our 2 national petitions, one on free trade and the other on ending endless wars. And so if you'll remember back to a Citizens Bulletin program that we did in the fall, we were able to have Dan Pearson join us, who is our Senior Trade Policy Fellow in Arlington. And so he has put out some incredible work that has been featured in national publications like The Hill. And we want to make sure that we are backing up some of that national press with grassroots action. And so please visit tradebuildsamerica.com. And right there, you're going to be able to view an awesome video that features one of President Reagan's speeches on free trade. It's wonderfully done. And then right on that landing page is our petition. And what it says is, from Midwestern towns to coastal cities, trade helps build strong communities and drives American progress, creating jobs, fueling small business growth, and supplying hardworking families with everyday goods and services at affordable prices. Tell Washington to support American trade. And so please go on there and sign that. I think more than ever, we need Pennsylvanians' voices scaled on this issue. We have seen a great deal of our state's economy thrive from our exports, which of course most notably includes mushrooms. And so we just want to make sure that we continue to see that growth for our farmers and business owners across, and frankly, consumers of those goods across the Commonwealth. So head to Trade Builds America and sign that. And our other national effort that we're asking you to engage on is our End Endless Wars campaign. And so again, if you'll simply visit endendlesswars.com, you'll be directed right to the page where you can take action and sign our petition. That letter reads, I'm asking today that you bring our troops home from Afghanistan as soon as possible. As tensions continue to rise in the Middle East, our troops in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria are put in dangerous positions they don't need to be in. Our service members accomplished their original objectives in Afghanistan long ago. Maintaining a large presence on the ground does not meet any legitimate national interest. Continuing to deploy troops to Afghanistan puts them in unnecessary danger. Please do all that you can to protect our troops and bring them home. And so if you sign that letter, it's going to go to both your U.S. senators, Senator Casey and Senator Toomey, and your member of Congress. And so for folks that are in Montgomery County, near where the station is located, that will go to Congresswoman Dean, and we would love for you to share her response. And so again, if her office sends you a response, you can always just send that to our Info PA account. that I just mentioned because we would love to kind of have that on the record. So those are the two national efforts I really want to point people to, and engaging Pennsylvanians in both of those issue areas are so important, and in both of those campaigns, because we are one of the largest states and we have a congressional delegation that is 18 strong with 2 senators, and so we just want to make sure that they are hearing from us and that the messages we're delivering on the Hill are accompanied by grassroots pressure from across the state. And so on the federal front, that's where we are, and I just want to provide a couple of updates for folks about state policies that are seeing some movement. And so one of those is House Bill 995, which is called the Fighting Chance Act. And so when we've talked about this in the past, we've talked about this being a perfect complement to our economic opportunity vision. And so when we think about that portfolio of issues, which covers regulation and employment and healthcare and fiscal policy, we think through the lens of the following vision. We want to empower people to earn success, contribute to their communities, and live meaningful lives. And so when we think about regulation and all of the barriers that it erects to folks just being able to begin to possibly work or begin to think about opening up a business, this is something that clearly needs to be addressed if we are wanting to empower people to earn their success. And so what the Fighting Chance Act does is it creates a pilot program for red tape reduction. And so it would aim to reduce regulations in the Board of Probation and Parole and the Bureau of Professional and Occupational Affairs by 25%. And at the conclusion of this multi-year pilot program, the state would assess the outcomes and then make recommendations to expand the program across other executive branch agencies. It would also allow every state agency to count and catalog all the regulations and requirements under its authority. And what we want to express that it's critical for policymakers to understand exactly how many rules, regs, and requirements are on the books in order to plan and implement reforms. We think that's an important baseline for them to have. And so we know that our state has one of the most burdensome regulatory codes in the country, and that weighs on families, on workers, and on businesses. It weighs in the real cost, right, of someone deciding, hey, I'm not going to expand that sector of my business because, the headache of hiring, all of the different professionals that I would need to navigate that regulation is not even worth it. And then we have people who will never know that they didn't choose to start a business or explore a new opportunity just because of the kind of daunting reality of the red tape that existed in front of them. And so what is so exciting about this bill is that it is bipartisan. It has bipartisan co-sponsors. So we have Representative Andrew Lewis from the Harrisburg area, and then we have Representative Malcolm Kenyatta from the Philadelphia area, who co-sponsored this together, and we're able to bring in a really diverse group of co-sponsors. But it is also one that has been signed into law in a state that neighbors us, Virginia, by a governor that is a Democrat. And so that is our reality here in Pennsylvania. And so we think this has the best shot of being signed into law by Governor Wolf. And we just received word last week from one of the sponsors that this legislation is going to be considered in committee, in the state government committee, in March. And so what we want folks to do, listeners to do, is please go on to americansforprosperity.ivolunteers.com and check out the PA Fighting Chance petition. And so it is called Pennsylvania Workers Deserve a Fighting Chance, and go ahead and sign that. because right in the region around your station, right in Montgomery County, you have Representative Kevin Boyle, who serves the 172nd Legislative District, and he happens to be the minority chair of the State Government Committee, where this bill will be voted out from. And so we want him to hear from your listeners, for folks to tell him to go ahead and be a yes vote for this bipartisan legislation. And so, Susan, do you want me to repeat that, or do you think folks got that? Was that clear?
I think it would be great to repeat it again, Ashley. It's wonderful information, and people need to know how they can affect a change here.
Yes, so please visit our action portal, which is AmericansForProsperity.ivolunteers.com, and there you will find our petition that corresponds to this very bill, and it is called Pennsylvania Workers Deserve a Fighting Chance. And so what we want everyone listening to do is to go on, just simply sign your name to that, and it is going to be shot to both your state senator and your state rep. And right in the listener region around the station, folks can certainly be one of Representative Kevin Boyle's constituents, who is the Democratic chair of the House State Government Committee, where this will be voted out of. So we are not asking you to do this for fun. We are asking you to do it because we need that fortification in our message that this is something people want. And again, why we think this is, of all the regulatory bills that are being considered, why this is so important is because we do believe that the governor will sign this. And so that is why we want this to get across the line this year. And so we're already more than halfway through the session, and so we've got to make some moves on that. And some additional updates I just wanted to share is that on the fiscal policy side of things, the Taxpayer Protection Act, which is House Bill 1316, sponsored by Representative Ryan Warner, is likely to receive consideration again sometime this spring. And so we're really looking forward to that. That legislation essentially is a resolution that provides for an amendment to the Constitution that provides spending limits on what the legislature can do. And that has to be tied to inflation and population. And so this is exactly what we need to kind of check some of the budgeting that happens and spending in Harrisburg. And so we really hope that folks will also just let their member know you expect them to be a yes vote on House Bill 1316. Additionally, we know that, and we've talked about occupational licensing reform, and I shared with you that the two bills that we have been working on, Senate Bill 637 and House Bill 1477, were both voted out of their respective chambers unanimously or near unanimously. So for Senator DeSanto's bill, Senate Bill 637, it received a 49-0 vote out of the Senate. And Representative Delozier's House Bill 1477, received a vote of 193-4. And so these have both passed their respective chambers, but now we've got to come up with which bill they actually want to vote on concurrence in the other chamber and then send to the governor. And so what was really exciting was in a committee hearing last week for House Appropriations, a Department of State hearing, these bills were actually brought up. And so Representative Bullock actually brought it up and emphasized the importance of making professions available for all communities. And that's exactly the narrative that we've been driving. And so what these bills do is require that the licensing boards in Harrisburg, I think it's now over 30, they only withhold a license for convictions which are directly related to the practice of the occupation. And so we want boards to consider the nature of the offense, the amount of time that's passed since the conviction, evidence of the applicant's fitness to practice the occupation, and other relevant factors before they decide to withhold a license. And so this, again, allows people to fully realize what their second chance post-release from prison or after they've been able to serve their community time. This allows them to fully integrate back into society or have the chance to do so. And so we're really excited to see this get across the aisle and get across the finish line, I should say, and get to the governor. And it was exciting to hear this brought up in that hearing. And so, again, we want folks to go ahead and sign our petition that is titled Stop Burdensome Licensing Rules. And you would, again, find that at americansforprosperity.ivolunteers.com. And then the last update I wanted to provide was on the free expression side of things. And so, again, our vision for free expression is really that the ability to think, speak, and associate freely is the foundation of an open society. And so we want to remove barriers to those freedoms and enable all people to participate in public discourse. And so we have in Pennsylvania two great bills, House Bill 95 and Senate Bill 95, that's going to do more to protect free speech. And essentially what these bills do is create a process to quickly dismiss SLAPs, which are strategic lawsuits against public participation, against constitutionally protected speech through a special motion to dismiss. So what we've seen, listeners, is that let's say you leave a negative review on Yelp. What will happen is maybe a restaurant or a business will stick a SLAP suit on you, and essentially what it does is threaten you to the point that you feel like, hey, if I just take this comment down, I'll be able to have this dismissed. And that is chilling free speech. It's a problem across the country as digital platforms have grown. And so several states have already passed free speech protection acts that address these SLAP suits, but we want to do it here. And so essentially, I just was able to receive an update from Miss Sarah Speed, who works for Senator Farnese, who is, again, from Philadelphia. He is the sponsor of the Senate Bill 95. And so she also works and serves as the Senate Judiciary Committee's executive director, which is where this bill is. And so she wanted us to just know that they are talking with the House and making sure that there is a plan to figure out which vehicle to move. And so I believe wholeheartedly that we are going to see movement on that legislation this year, which is incredibly exciting. And of course, we have a corresponding petition for folks to sign online. And so we hope that you'll do that. It is titled Free Speech is Under Attack. So all of those petitions that I mentioned can be found at americansforprosperity.ivolunteers.com. And do I have time to just give a plug for two events happening out in your neck of the woods, Susan?
Absolutely. Please do.
Okay. First is coming up this Saturday on March 7th. It is at 7 a.m. at the Renaissance Airport in Philadelphia. And we are going to be talking through our vision for a free society. And so we're going to allow folks to kind of almost workshop through, if we know what a free society, what elements make that a reality, how can we impact the key institution of government to aid in that pursuit? And so I think it's going to be a very fascinating discussion. So if you want more information on that, just simply shoot our general inbox, info@afphq.org, and email. Or if you simply want to contact the engagement director in Philadelphia, Linwood Holland, you can give him a holler at 267 267-201-0972. And I will say that again, 267-201-0972. And he will get you that information. And then the second event is we're excited to partner with the Commonwealth Foundation to have a second screening in Philadelphia of Miss Virginia, which tells the story of kind of the educational freedom movement in Washington, D.C., spearheaded by Miss Virginia. And so we are excited to have a screening of that. It is on St. Patrick's Day, Tuesday, March 17th. And so if you want more details about that, just give Linwood a call, or you can simply email us at that InfoPA account.
Thank you, Ashley. These are wonderful opportunities for everyone to do something positive. You've given us such exciting and encouraging reports about all of these various topics that you've been covering the last few weeks. It's exciting to see how they're coming together, the positive influence that you're having. We really appreciate it, and thank you for sharing it with us.
Absolutely.
So listeners, go to the AFP website to get the details again if you need to. Maybe, Ashley, you could give that website one more time?
Yes, it is AmericansForProsperity.ivolunteers, and that is with an S, .com. And then the trade site that we want you to visit and sign the trade petition is tradebuildsamerica.com. And the Endless Wars petition can be found at endlesswars.com.
Very good. And listeners, I would invite you too to go to our website to listen to this podcast again if you missed part of it or would like to go over it again, because Ashley's given so much information in a short time, very valuable information. Ashley, thank you. We really appreciate all that you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Thank you so much. And thank you, listeners, for being with us today. This has been Citizens Bulletin. Know your role as an informed Pennsylvania citizen with Ashley Klingensmith, Pennsylvania State Director of Americans for Prosperity.